Om Tyageshwaram Ramakrishnam Saradam Matrirupinim Vivekanandamacharyam Natva Vakshami Shuddhe. We have been discussing the characteristic of Parabhakti as presented by Narada Maharshi. We have discussed it. We'll just recall the important one. Tadarpita Akhila Acharata. That was the character. And Tadvismarane Paramavyakulata. Extreme anguish at the forgetfulness of God. And dedication, spirit of dedication of all activities unto God. This spirit of dedication, that is a practice which is very important. Important in the sense, it doesn't need any special preparation. You don't have to go anywhere or get any things to practice this. It's our attitude. It can be practiced any time of the day, so throughout the day. That's why this practice is important, coupled with continuous chanting of God's name. It's a very effective sadhana. And the teachers say that you can't just develop this spirit of dedication of all actions unto God in one day. So they say you start with the practice of recalling at the end of the day all that one has done throughout the day. Recall everything and then offer everything, its results and oneself unto God. That's how we begin. As we progress, we will be able to split our day, so to say. So in the beginning of an activity, we pray to God, help me do it as a service unto you. And when the activity is over, we again offer the activity, its result and ourselves unto God. So the whole day gets split into various parts. And then as we still progress, then we are able to really bring in that sense of dedication in everything we do. And then there is no more of offering results. There is no need. Because as we perform actions, we do them for the sake of the Lord, as a worship of the Lord. There is no more offering of results. So that's how this progresses. And as Revered Tapasyanji told, initially it is offering the activity, its results and all that to God. That is the first stage. Second stage is even the agency is offered to the Lord. Then we don't even become the agent. The agency itself is offered to the Lord. So it's very easy to follow but very effective and powerful practice. We discussed it in our last class towards the end of it. And Narada then gives an example. Just stating a theory doesn't really get registered in the minds of the hearers. So he gives example, Yatha Vrajagopikanam, as was the case with Vrajagopikas, the gopis of Vrindavan. Their life was such. In them this Parabhakti was manifest in this manner. Everything they did, from morning till evening, morning till night, or everything, even maybe their sleep also perhaps, everything was for Krishna. So the entire life, all the activities were dedicated for Krishna. And the thought of separation for Krishna was extremely, unbearingly, excruciatingly painful for them. So both the signs, characteristics of Parabhakti we find in the lives of the gopis. And so Narada has given this as an example. In our last class we discussed these gopis, their attitude towards Krishna, the Bhagwan, it's called Madhura Bhava, the attitude of a lover towards the beloved. And there are actually 5 relations with which one can relate oneself to God, one can channelize one's love towards God. There could be n number, but Bhakti scriptures have categorized 5. Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya and Madhura. We discussed these in our last class. Of these, Madhura is the highest. There is gradation, of course there is gradation. But there is no concept of graduation. In the sense, one doesn't have to practice Shanta Bhava and then graduate to next and then graduate to next. That is not necessary, not required. Each of these attitudes Suppose one has an attitude of being a servant of God, that is his or her bhava. That one bhava is self-sufficient, self-contained. With that attitude, if that person lives his or her life, that is enough to take that person to the attainment of parabhakti. So there is no concept of graduation, though there is concept of gradation, but no need of graduation. Each of these is independent. Sri Ramakrishna added one more bhava called Santana bhava, that is attitude of a child towards God. So I am God's child. That is Santana bhava. And he said this is the purest of attitudes. He encouraged Santana bhava. He said for this yuga, Santana bhava is best. Dasya bhava also he encouraged. And he discouraged people to practice this Madhura bhava, the attitude of a lover towards the beloved. He said it is not for all people. So he discouraged people from practicing this, which the gopis had. Sri Ramakrishna discouraged it for the practice by common people. As devotees, it is advisable, the scriptures advise, the teachers advise that a devotee should have one or the other of these bhavas as, so to say, a ground of relation with God. And this bhava, each one, it differs from individual to individual, but it is innate in our nature. One doesn't have to choose, one has to discover it. If at all it is choosing, then one has to find out which suits oneself internally. It is innate within every one of us. One of these bhavas is innate. We have to discover it, so to say, and use it to channelize our love, our devotion, our emotions towards God. This becomes a concrete help. The relation with our relation with God becomes so to say concretized, becomes established, and it helps us channelize our love towards God in a meaningful, fruitful way. And that is why discovering, adhering to, practicing one of these bhavas is advised by Bhakti scriptures. So this is about these various bhavas, and we should adopt one of those. Sri Ramakrishna says, ego is not going to go away. So let it remain as the ego of a devotee, as the ego of a child of God. Let it remain. So such ego, there is no harm in such an ego. So this is what we have discussed in our last class. Now coming to these gopis' love for Krishna, it's a very delicate matter, It's a delicate matter. And Swami Vivekananda has given a caution, a word of caution. He says that unless one is pure to the extent of losing one's body consciousness, pure to the extent that one forgets one has body, unless one is that pure, one should not venture into studying seriously, discussing, forget about practicing this Madhura Bhava, this attitude that gopis had towards Sri Krishna. Unless one is absolutely pure, one should not venture into it. That is the word of caution given by Swami Vivekananda. So we have to be careful but Narada Maharshi has brought this subject up. We will follow whatever he has told, but we should always have this caution at the back of our mind. This gopis' love, there are objections. Objections by immature minds, impure minds. They say that this love was earthly. Gopis' love for Krishna was earthly love. And because they view it as earthly, they say it was illicit. Because they were married, they had their families, they gave up everything and were running after Krishna. So it was illicit love. They did not understand that this love that gopis had was pure. It was spiritual. There was nothing earthly in the love of gopis for Krishna. But these people, they fail to understand it. And they say that this was an earthly love, an illicit love, and how could this be glorified? This is the objection. And as a reason, or why do they object? Why do they think that it was earthly love? They say gopis were not aware of the glory of Krishna. Krishna is Lord Himself. They were not aware of the glories of Lord Krishna. Hence, we assume that their love was earthly, and it is not something that should be extolled, but it should be decried. That is their objection. And Narada perhaps is aware. So he says, "Na tatra mahatmya jnana vismriti apavadaha." So he says that, look, you are saying gopis were not aware of the glory of the Lord, but that is not true. There is no apavada. There is no fault in this love of gopis. Fault of what? Mahatmya jnana vismriti. Vismriti is forgetfulness. Jnana is awareness, knowledge of Mahatmya. So this fault of being forgetful of the glories of the Lord is not there in the love of the gopis. In other words, gopis were fully aware that Krishna was Lord Himself, was God Himself. That is the first counter argument that Narada gives. Don't say their love was earthly because they were not aware of the glories of Krishna. They were fully aware of the glories of Krishna, and hence their love was not earthly. Now, how can one say they were aware of the glories of Krishna? Two reasons. One is they were witness to so many superhuman activities of Krishna while in Vrindavan. So all these, that Kaliya, Mardana and Govardhana, all these activities, they were witness. So obviously they knew that he is not an ordinary human being. It's clear-cut proof that they definitely, no one would imagine that he was an ordinary human being looking at those superhuman feats of his. That is one. Secondly, there is mention. They are saying that we know you are not just the one who gives joy to the gopi. Na khalu gopika nandano bhavan sakala dehinam antaratmadruk. They say we know you are the innermost self of all beings. The entire creation, you are the innermost being, the witness of all beings. So gopis were fully aware that Krishna was not an ordinary human being. So there was no fault of their forgetting His glories. The problem is the language. The language is earthly. And that is where the problem comes. That is one problem is that. Language of earthly love. So that is one problem. The other problem is Gopis' love for Krishna was so intense that their awareness of the glories of God, it was kind of submerged in their love for Krishna. Though they were aware, but it was not important for them. Their love for Krishna was so intense that their awareness of His glory was submerged. And hence, their language also doesn't depict so much of the glories of the Lord than their love for the Lord. Something like, mother has a child, has a person, the child is there, then child grows and becomes a very important person in the society. But for mother, it's only a child. She's aware that he is holding some important post or is very powerful and all that. But when she deals with him, all that is submerged. She's aware, but that awareness doesn't mean anything to her because her love overpowers that awareness of that person's powers. Same thing happened in the case of gopis also. So their love for Krishna was so intense that their awareness of His being God and all that was just washed aside. They were not interested in that. They just wanted to love Krishna. So that fault is not there. And of course, Narada accepts tadvihinam jaranamiva. That is the next sutra. He says that yes, if that awareness is not there, then it becomes illicit love. If gopis were not aware of the glories of the Lord, then it would have become illicit love, but that is not the case. And then he gives one more proof or one more reason as to why gopis' love was not earthly but spiritual. Something that, it's a quality which no earthly love can have. Nastyeva tasmin tat sukha sukhitvam. That is the next sutra. Nastyeva tasmin tat sukha sukhitvam. Tasmin, in earthly love, nasti, it is not there. In earthly love, we don't find one quality. And which is that quality? There is tat sukha sukhitvam. Tat sukha sukhitvam. That is, being happy at the happiness of other. Being happy at the happiness of others. This is the quality. This quality is missing in the earthly love. But it was there in the love of gopis for Krishna. And hence, their love was not earthly. So the earthly love, at a very crude stage, or lowest kind of love, it is the lover's happiness alone that matters. One person loves other because the company of his or her gives happiness to the lover. It is the lover's happiness which is paramount in that relationship, in that equation. In a slightly higher evolved relationship, it could be 50-50, the happiness of the lover and the beloved. But it is never only your happiness. It is never there in earthly love. Earthly love always smacks of selfishness. And that's why we find it doesn't take time for earthly love to turn into hatred. Unrequited, unresponded love, immediately, so soon it turns into hatred. If it were really love, it wouldn't have turned into hatred. So that fault is there in earthly love. It is centered around the lover's happiness. Whereas in the case of gopis, they were willing to go to any level. They were willing to go to even hell if necessary. But they wanted Lord to be happy. That is tat sukha sukhitvam. That was there in that quality they had. They felt that Lord should be happy. It doesn't matter where we go. What happens to us, it just doesn't matter. They would tell these acharyas, they tell Puranas, there are so many stories about gopis and their love and all that. And when this Narada Maharshi went to Sri Krishna and asked him, who is your greatest devotee? So Sri Krishna did not answer. He said that I don't know about that, but right now I have got headache. And that headache is not going at all, it is there. Then Narada Maharshi said, I'll get the doctor. And he said, doctor will not help. So then what will help? And he said, if some devotees give the dust of their feet and that is applied to my head, my headache will go away. You are a great devotee, you give the dust of your feet. And Narada shuddered. He said, anyone gives the dust of his or her feet to put on your head, that person will go to hell. Then Narada goes around to all great devotees, and they say he went to Sri Krishna's wives also and asked them, and everyone said, you are asking for something impossible, how can we do it? And then he came back to Krishna, and Krishna said, what happened? And he said, no one is willing to give you dust of their feet because they'll have to suffer hell. Then Krishna asked, did you go to Vrindavan? Narada said, those illiterate people, what will they understand? He said, no, you go there once. And when Narada goes and all those gopis, they gather around him and they ask him about Krishna. And then he says that Krishna, this is his condition and this is the remedy. And every one of them is competing with one another. They are competing with one another to give the dust of their feet, you see. And then Narada said, you fools, you do not know what will happen to you. If you give this, you will go to hell, because this is going on the head of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And then gopis say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether we go to hell or we go anywhere. Let our Lord, let Him be happy. Let Him be free from whatever suffering He is having. Let Him be happy. It doesn't matter what happens to us. So that was the attitude of the gopis. They had only that one thought, how to make Krishna happy. And that is impossible in earthly love. And that is why the love of the gopis is said to be most pure. It is spiritual, it is not earthly. There is nothing earthly in that love of gopis. There are two more points in this and then we'll close. So Swamiji gives one more reason as to why this love of the gopis was pure. He says, who is the recorder of this love of the gopis? Who has recorded this? It is Shuka himself, the author of Bhagavata. Shuka Maharshi. Shuka Maharshi is purity personified right from his birth. If such a pure person depicts this love, there is no reason for us to even imagine that there could be anything earthly in this love, because the recorder is purity personified, Shuka Maharshi. That is one point. Secondly, Sri Ramakrishna, when he talks about this love, now he would go into samadhi when anyone sang in his songs about this love of the gopis for Krishna and all that. But he used to tell that you take the intensity of that love, the intensity with which gopis loved Krishna, you take that. You try to aspire for that. Forget about their attitude. Forget about with what equation, what relation they had. You forget that. Look at the intensity. They forgot what they were doing. They forgot whether they had proper clothes on, whether one bangle they had put, second bangle they had not put. They didn't know which ornament goes where. That intensity of their love, you try to aspire for that. In your own bhava, in whichever bhava you are practicing, it doesn't matter. Try to aspire for that intensity of the love of the gopis. That is Sri Ramakrishna's advice. And of course, during Sri Ramakrishna's time itself, somebody had raised the issue about the historicity. Did these gopis really exist? Did they really love Krishna and all that? The young people used to come to him. So somebody raised this issue. There also Sri Ramakrishna he had answers for everyone. So he said, okay, suppose there was nobody called gopis, okay. But the book is there. Somebody has written this book. When that person wrote that book, he or she has actually felt that love which gopis had for Krishna. He has actually felt that love and then he has written. He or she, whoever it is. Somebody has written this book and the author has actually lived the life of the gopis, has actually felt love of the gopis. Take that. Physical gopis might not have been there, but their love, somebody has experienced. Somebody has actually felt it and then put it in words. So there has to be someone who has actually loved the Lord with that intensity. So that's how the historical argument also, Sri Ramakrishna quashes kind of thing. Anyways, but as we discuss all this, we have to remember that Swamiji's caution that unless one is absolutely pure, one should not venture to study in detail and discuss or forget about practice this gopis' love for Krishna, because though it was pure, the language is earthly. And that's what makes it difficult for immature minds to understand its spiritual nature. It do more harm than good. So that is how Narada has defended this love of gopis as being pure. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.